Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for being here today. I am Bob Carey with the Veterans Justice Alliance and National Defense Committee. We are very grateful for the actions and the leadership of Representative Bilirakis and Senator Blumenthal for moving forward the Major Richard Starr Act and finally getting rid of this huge inequity of wounded veterans having to pay a tax on their military retirement. I'm going to be turning this over to Representative Bilirakis to talk about the latest that we're working on and how we're going to move this forward. Representative Bilirakis.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it very much. And first I want to recognize a friend of mine, the brother of Richard Starr. David, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it. It means a lot to us. All of you here are heroes behind me. You are number one as far as we're concerned. So thank you all for being here today. As one of the main sponsors is the Major Richard Starr action in the House, I'm proud to lead, of course, help lead the charge to correct longstanding injustice impacting our nation's veterans. As you know, folks, we have plenty of co-sponsors in the House and in the Senate. This needs to get done, and needs to get done this year. And I want to thank Senator Blumenthal for working so very hard with me. Our staffs are working together. Who says we can't get this done in a bipartisan fashion? And we will get it done for our heroes.
Huzzah.
If we are going to spend money, we're going to spend it on our true American heroes, our veterans. So for far too long, service members who were forced to medically retire due to combat-related injuries have been denied the full military retirement and disability benefits they earned through their sacrifice. We owe this to them, ladies and gentlemen. Quite simply, these brave men and women are penalized for being wounded in service to our nation. It's not going to happen any longer as far as me and our great senator here. We're going to make this happen. Morgan Luttrell, who's also a true American hero, I believe will be with us very soon. So we are strategizing. We've got to get this done. The Major Richard Starr Act will finally allow these combat injured veterans to receive the benefits they have unquestionably earned. This legislation has overwhelming bipartisan support, as I stated before, in both the House and the Senate, because members of Congress on both sides of the aisle recognize the fundamental fairness of this particular issue. It should be a no-brainer as far as I'm concerned. We don't have no-brainers up here in D.C., unfortunately. Yet, despite the support, and we have so much support, this bill continues to stall because of concerns over costs. Again, if we're going to spend money, ladies and gentlemen, let's spend it on our Chapter 61 veterans. So let me be clear. We have an obligation to be prudent stewards of taxpayer dollars, but fiscal responsibility should never come at the expense of the men and women who have already sacrificed their health, their careers, in many ways their future earning potential and defense of our freedoms. When our nation sends brave men and women into harm's way, we make a promise to them, and we're going to keep that promise. That if they are wounded in service, we will care for them. We will care for them. Not just healing their physical and mental wounds, but we will reimburse them. And we've got to get this done as soon as possible. Right now, we are falling short of that promise, ladies and gentlemen. These are not ordinary budget times. They're obligations owed to American heroes. They should come first. The cost of correcting the injustice pales. It pales in comparison to the cost borne by the service members who have given so much. It is time for Congress to honor Major Richard Starr's legacy. And I knew him very well. I knew his wife very well, and of course his brother. We must deliver justice for our combat injured veterans. It's plain and simple. We must deliver justice for our heroes. I urge you to keep up the pressure on our colleagues. The time is now. I want to again thank all of you for being here. It makes all the difference in the world, folks. Thank you very much for your tireless efforts. They will not go in vain. Let's get this done as soon as possible. Thank you very much.
Good job.
Senator Blumenthal, ranking member of the Senate Veterans Affairs Committee and member of the Senate Armed Services Committee.
Thank you. I want to thank Captain Carey, most particularly David Starr. Thank you for being here. My colleagues, Representative Bilirakis, Representative Luttrell. You know, this is a very personal moment for many of the folks here. Many of them are seeing their retirement pay docked dollar for dollar, because they are getting disability benefits. These veterans were injured in the service of our country, and their reward is to see their retirement pay reduced. That is absolutely abhorrent, unacceptable, unjust, unconscionable. But we need more than fancy words here. We need action.
Huzzah.
We need action. Twice I have gone to the floor of the United States Senate asking for unanimous consent for a bill that has 78 co-sponsors. 78 co-sponsors, both sides of the aisle. It's totally bipartisan. There's nothing political about this bill. There is no excuse for the United States Congress failing to pass this bill this afternoon. Literally, this afternoon. Now, I've heard all the objections. Double dipping? False. Ridiculous. Can't afford it? Absolutely wrong. Whatever you think about this war in Iran, we're spending at least $2 billion a day on this war. We're not here to talk about the war, but I'm here to talk about the costs of war. One of the costs of war is to care for our veterans.
Yep.
And for additional men and women in uniform to be injured, there are at least 350 that have been injured now in this war. And they will see their retirement pay docked, dollar for dollar, because they may receive disability benefits. That's just wrong. It's unworthy of a great nation. We made promises. We're failing to keep those promises. So I can't imagine a more important cause for me and for the Congress than making sure we eliminate this injustice. It is an injustice. I want to thank the National Justice Alliance, thousands of veterans who are advocating for our veterans. The costs of war include the costs of caring for our veterans, making sure that the VA does its job, that we provide them with health care and education benefits and everything that we have promised them. But what is more basic than making sure they get what they've earned, what they deserve, the money in retirement pay fully, the money for their disability compensation fully, a recognition and honor for their injuries, not, in effect, punishment for them. This is an idea whose time has come. In fact, it's way long overdue. And I just want to thank the folks who are here today for your service to our nation. You know, there's an old saying, a picture's worth 1,000 words. This picture's worth 1,000 words. Pictures of patriots, of men and women who have served and sacrificed, and now are just basically asking for justice on their behalf, but even more so on behalf of the thousands of men and women they represent. The cost here is estimated to be about $1 billion a year. for the next 10 years. $1 billion a year. A year. That's half of what we are spending daily on this war. Daily. And that's a lowball figure. Don't tell me we can't afford full compensation for these veterans. I don't want to hear it. The Congress shouldn't hear it. And the American people demand that we do the right thing. Thank you all for being here today.
Thank you very much. When Representative Luttrell gets here, we'll defer to him and let him speak. I know there's a lot of activity going on in both the House and Senate today, so we're trying to be as positive as possible in order to be able to accommodate that. But about 6 months ago, I've been working these issues for a number of years, and about 6 months ago, I started seeing some grassroots folks starting to show up on social media all over the place. They were really on social media. And then I started to see billboards starting to go up, talking about people standing in the way of the Major Richard Starr Act. And that got my attention. So I reached out to them and learned who these folks were. And who these folks are the people behind us, the Veterans Justice Alliance. And it was started by a guy named Sergeant Youngman, Michael Youngman, who's the chairman of the Veterans Justice Alliance. And I'm going to turn over to him to let him talk to you about what we're doing here at the VJA and how we're going to turn this into success for the Major Richard Starr Act.
For 7 years and 4 Congresses, combat wounded veterans have been waiting for our earned retirement pay. This is an injustice that needs to end now. We are expecting that the Major Richard Starr Act be passed out of committee by Memorial Day.
You're here.
Thank you.
Many of you met Major Starr when he was working this. Many of you met his wife. Unfortunately, both have passed away. But there's also another member of the Starr family that is also a veteran that is working this today. Let me introduce you to First Sergeant David Starr.
Thank you. 6 years ago, my brother stood in this very spot, standing next to these esteemed leaders and asking them for support. He passed 5 years ago. We have had 4 Congresses since then. It is time for us to go ahead and move this bill forward, get the 54,000 combat wounded veterans their retirement pay, the retirement pay that they shed their very blood for. I ask in which the House Majority Caucus bring the Major Richard Starr Act to the floor under suspension of the rules and get these combat veterans the funds, the financial stability that they need to go ahead and try to put a dent in the 22 a day. Veteran suicide is the #1 leading heartbreak across the veterans community, and financial stability would go a long way. Thank you.
You're here. And that's part of the attractiveness of the Veterans Justice Alliance. They're not taking no for an answer anymore. They're not taking we'll try to get to it. They're not taking we'll see what we can do. They're demanding action now. And one of the people that appeared on one of those billboards was the guy sitting next to me, Sergeant Brooks of Mississippi. And I don't know if I need to do anything with the mics here. If someone who has better technical skill than me tells me, I'll do that. But I'd like to introduce Sergeant Brooks of Mississippi.
All right. Thank you so much. 21 years ago, I was serving in Iraq, and I lost both of my legs to a roadside bomb. Leaving part of your body on the battlefield should not result in losing your retirement. And one of the things we want to ask today is we want the House minority to push forward with a discharge petition and pass the Major Richard Starr Act. We need to end the Wounded Warrior tax. Stop punishing our veterans for giving it their all. Thank you.
Thank you. And that's one of the things I like about Veterans Justice Alliance as well. They're asking for real things in real time. Get this passed out of committee. Bring up the discharge petition in the House. Bring up an under suspension of the rules in the House. Do it now. And one of the things also that's helping on this is that many state legislatures are now starting to pass laws or resolutions encouraging the federal government to pass the Major Richard Starr Act. One of the guys that led this effort in Iowa, along with the VFW National Commander, is Representative Ken Crokin. Representative Crokin?
Thank you all very much. I am Iowa State Representative Ken Crokin. I'm also a member of our Veterans Affairs Committee. I'm here today to present a resolution, a unanimous resolution, of the Iowa House of Representatives supporting federal passage of Major Richard Starr Act now. I think what this demonstrates, this is no longer a Beltway issue. There are people across the country who are watching this action going on right now and demanding justice for our most heroic men and women, patriots all. My message today is very succinct and I hope clear. We need to include the Major Richard Starr Act in any DOD supplemental appropriation or reconciliation bill, and we need to do it now. These men and women have waited long enough. Thank you.
Thank you. As folks say, this crosses party lines. Everyone is on board with this. This is not a partisan issue. This is a philosophical issue, where some people think that veterans just get paid too much money. We disagree with that. One of the people I'm going to be turning over to now is Chief Warrant Speciale, who has some firsthand experience about this as well. Thanks.
As one of those grassroots activists advocating for veterans, they only gave me 1 minute. And it's really difficult to imagine me being able to say something in 1 minute, but I'm going to try really hard. The bottom line is the greatest sacrifice a person ever makes is for their fellow battle buddies, right? And we're talking about the retirement benefits being taken away based on becoming disabled in the service of their oath to our country. Only 1% of the American people serve in uniform. We're talking about approximately 50,000 veterans that are currently disabled that would benefit from this law being passed that are living today. They are walking wounded, living among us today, that have been disenfranchised by their own government, and that their retirement benefits have been decremented because they're disabled. That is unconscionable. It has to end. This has gone on for 7 years. There's massive support, bipartisan support. So what I'm asking is this, and the President knows me, the Secretary of Defense, Secretary of War knows me. Tulsi Gabbard, a veteran herself, knows me. And what I'm asking for right now is executive action. We need executive pressure on Congress to get this done. We're coming up on the 250th anniversary of the greatest country that's ever existed on this planet. And that is because of the sacrifices of veterans. Pure and simple. And their families. And so, to get this done, we're asking that this be done immediately. They know the law better than I do, but I don't like to wait. They could do this today. I want to thank the members of the House and the members of the Senate for being out here with us today. But there's a lot more of them that also support this, and it's all because of a few pennies that they're holding this up. We're talking about $1 billion a year for 10 years approximately. Okay? That is a pittance when we're talking about doing what our American military is able to do around the world and the sacrifices our veterans make every day. And these are our combat disabled veterans. These are the greatest patriots that have ever lived, and they are still living among us today, and we are depriving them of their retirement benefits because of their sacrifice. And that's unconscionable. And I'm asking the executive branch to directly step in, put influence on this, and let's get this done, I would say, at the latest on the 4th of July, 2026, on the 250th anniversary of this country. That'd be a great day to do it as well. Yeah. All right, thank you.
A lot of organizations have been working this for a lot of years. In fact, we've even made up the Richard Starr Alliance, made up of about 35 organizations. The Military Coalition has made this their #1 issue. 5 organizations offering real offsets to how we can pay for this, and yet we hear crickets. But there's other organizations here with us today. We have Military Officers Association of America has been hitting the hill talking about the Major Richard Starr Act. We got the Veterans of Foreign Wars is helping take our folks around. We got Mission Roll Call with us today, and then we also have the co-chair of the Richard Starr Alliance, Jonathan Nutman from the Armed Forces Sergeants Association, who's going to talk about what they're doing. Jonathan.
As Bob said, I'm co-chair of the TMC Retired Affairs Committee, and I serve in the legislative policy team for the Air Force Sergeants Association. I want to first thank everybody for being here and showing up today. Leading with the simple message, no more excuses, no more delays, we got to get this done. The Major Richard Starr Act is the first step in making sure that anybody who is forced into medical retirement from the military receives their full retirement pay. And so I could go into everything that everyone has said here today, reiterating the points, but I'll keep it simple. We want to call for some hearings on concurrent receipt, because everybody who is forced into medical retirement deserves their full retirement pay, no excuses, and that starts with passing the Major Richard Starr Act. So I want to thank everybody for being here again today, and I'll turn it back over to Bob.
Thank you. Also, someone that's worked this hard for a number of years is Matthew Schwartzman of the Reserve Organization of America. Matthew.
Thank you very much, Bob. Senator, thank you very much for being with us today. It's great to be with you, and thank you, everyone, for joining us here today. On February 28, 46 days ago, the President announced the start of Operation Epic Fury, initiating U.S. military operations against Iran. To date, 13 American service members have been killed, 7 as a result of enemy action, and nearly 400 have been wounded. Just this morning, reports confirm that the U.S. has deployed thousands of additional troops to the Middle East. At a moment when American forces are once again engaged in major combat operations, the American people are watching closely. American mothers and fathers are watching closely. And they're asking a very fundamental question. If our sons and daughters are sent into harm's way, will this nation take care of them if they are wounded? The Major Richard Starr Act is not abstract policy. It is a test of whether this country keeps its word to combat injured service members. Today, tens of thousands of combat injured veterans are penalized because their injuries ended their careers before reaching 20 years of service. They are forced to choose between military retirement pay and disability compensation, 2 benefits earned for 2 different reasons. Passing the Major Richard Starr Act sends a very clear message. If you are injured in combat, your country will not shortchange you. It tells today's service members and their families that America honors sacrifice and doesn't penalize it. When we send people into combat, what we do for the wounded cannot be an afterthought. That is why Congress should include the Major Richard Starr Act in any Department of Defense supplemental appropriation or reconciliation bill that moves this year. If we can act quickly to fund warfighting needs, we can act just as quickly to do the right by the wounded. This is especially true as the President has just submitted a historic $1.5 trillion defense budget request. If we are prepared to invest at that scale in national defense, we must be prepared to ensure that care for the combat injured is fully and permanently honored. Unfortunately, Congress's reluctance to advance the Major Richard Starr Act is not the only signal being sent to today's force about how we value the wounded. We are also seeing decisions that raise serious concerns, including efforts by the Army Transformation Initiative to move out of the medevac mission. The Army is the Joint Force Service lead for medevac. It is the only service with organic medevac capability at scale, particularly within the Army Reserve. Walking away from that responsibility does not reassure the American people. It does not reassure service members or their families. And it does not convey a nation fully committed to caring for its wounded. This isn't a bureaucratic debate. It is a matter of trust. If we fail to send that message clearly, we risk weakening the bond between the nation and the people who defend it. Together, these decisions tell the American people something essential, that this country does not ask for sacrifice lightly and does not abandon those who pay the price. At a time of war, reassurance matters, commitment matters, and action matters. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to bring it home. Turn over to Senator Blumenthal. If he wants to say any last things, we'll open up for questions at that point. As a former Pentagon staffer, I have a 73-slide deck that I was going to present, but people thought that might not be a good idea in this heat. So I'll spare you that. But one of the things we've heard consistently, whether from senators on the Senate floor or from leadership in the House, is how are you going to pay for it? Well, one of the things that Veterans Justice Alliance, National Defense Committee, and a number of other organizations have done is bring forward actual offsets. In fact, today and yesterday, we presented to the Senate and House Armed Services Committee and the House and Senate Veterans Affairs Committee $3.5 billion a year of potential mandatory procurement offsets from the President's budget requests. $3.5 billion. In fact, there is a $20 billion a year mandatory spending for low interest subsidy loans for defense contractors in the President's budget request. We could pay for the entirety of the Major Richard Starr Act with 1 year of that. We're just asking for less than 1%. 1% of the mandatory procurement spending, of the $155 billion of mandatory procurement spending, to be applied towards a Major Richard Starr. We've been told we're unique in that we've actually provided offsets. We hope that people will act upon them. But the time has come for no more excuses. Get this done. We'll help you. We'll stand by you. We'll back you up. But get it done. Senator Blumenthal.
Thanks. I can't really add much to the eloquence that we've heard. Just to say thank you to Captain Kerry, to everyone here. It struck me when we heard from a first sergeant, a staff sergeant. These guys are the grunts. They're the ones who lead from the front. They're the ones who are there when the roadside bombs go off. They're the ones who pay the price. There's no compensating someone for these injuries sustained while serving and sacrificing for our country. Money is really what they need to survive, but they have given of themselves in ways that most Americans never do. And there are countless others who are ready to give of themselves, and we need to say to them, we keep our promises to our veterans. We're a great nation because we keep our promises. And I can promise you, I will go to the floor of the United States Senate again, seeking unanimous consent. I will make sure that we fight like the devil to include in any supplemental that comes to the United States Congress a provision on the Major Richard Starr Act, on any supplemental. I will fight to include it in the National Defense Authorization Act when we mark it up this spring and when it comes to the floor of the United States, and any other opportunity. I will give my colleagues who may object every chance to be right on this issue.
Hear, hear.
And we should hold them accountable if they continue to block it. 78 United States senators. Pretty rare to get that kind of support these days in the United States Senate. And it's a minority holding this bill hostage. We can afford it. That $1 billion a year, you mentioned $1.5 trillion. I can't even do the math to tell you what a minuscule part of 1.5 trillion 1 billion is. It's not just a rounding error. It's not even on the rounding table. So whatever the cost, we owe it to these veterans. We can afford it. Let's do it. Let's get the job done. My colleagues in the House, my colleagues in the Senate, do your job.
Are there any questions? Leo Shane.
Senator, I know in the past you've tried to get this on the DAA, you've tried to get unanimous consent. Do you feel like the supplemental gives you a new opportunity to get this forward? Have you had any conversations with Republican colleagues about it yet?
We haven't talked specifically about the timing of the supplemental because nobody's exactly sure whether there will be one, when it will be, how much. But I can tell you I've talked to my Republican colleagues about taking advantage of the supplemental, the NDAA, the floor, unanimous consent. We have a lot of support.
Sir.
Senator, given the bipartisan nature of the act, why do you think it failed to pass the first time?
Why do I think it has failed to pass? Short-sighted stinginess, a failure to understand we've made a promise. Some of my colleagues are prisoners of their own rhetoric about fiscal responsibility, and that's no excuse here.
Any other questions? We will stick around for a bit afterwards in order to be able to answer any other questions that you may have. Senator Blumenthal, thank you very much. Thank you to Veterans Justice Alliance, the other veteran organizations that joined us today. Thank you very much. We'll be around.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you
Take care,
very much.
David. You will. Thank you. Thank you all.